You only hear it when it. Welcome back to episode 14 of Data Mesh TV. This is our first episode in 2023, and we're excited to have Uday Hegde from USEReady. He's a CEO of USEReady, and like we do on Data Mesh TV, we always want to bring in experts from different areas. We want to have conversations with people that have the experience and the expertise that we can all learn from. We're all driving transformation. We want to accelerate transformation. We want to deliver business value through transformation. And there's a lot of different ways to approach your transformation program. I'm sure a lot of you have progressed. Some of us have learned some lessons. Some of us have gotten some big wins. Some of us are just getting started. Today's discussion, today's focus with Uday is to talk about the approach that USEReady takes. Now, what I love about this approach is that oftentimes we're so focused on the technology, or maybe we're so focused on the actual program itself, so to speak, that we miss the opportunity to really kind of apply our focus on the end user, right? That's what makes USEReady's approach so unique, is that in there, and you're going to talk a bit about the MOM approach, migrate, optimize, and modernize. Everything they're doing is really about helping that end user be ready to actually adopt, be ready to actually execute against the capabilities that we're building in your data mesh or in your data platform or whatever data transformation program that you're driving. So without any further ado, welcome to the show, Uday.
Thank you, Adrian, for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about where you're from. I want to recommend everyone go out there. There's an Indus TV episode. If you Google Uday, it's one of the first things that pops up on YouTube. I was looking at it actually this morning, doing a little bit of research, and I was inspired. One, by your story, but two, we have a little bit in common. I spent some time in Bangalore. I love the Bangalore community and the food that my friends were watching. But I also spent a little bit of time in Goa, which is beautiful, right? That beach is amazing. And you grew up, it feels like paradise right near Goa.
Yes, I am. Oh, wow. I'm really speechless right now because the way you have done your homework, probably not many people know this. I grew up in a very small village-like setup in rural India. So coming from there, and you took me for a moment back to the down the memory lane. Yeah, that's a beautiful region, totally mountainous, agriculture, very nice people.
On the show, I laughed a little bit because you said, I'm a failed agriculturalist. you're an incredible leader, but you're humble. Let's say I failed at agriculture, but I'm succeeding at data, and so I love that. In that success, I think the reason why so many people are drawn to your approach, certainly why Starburst is drawn to the approach that USEReady is driving, is because you apply, I think, a very practical approach. It's simple, right? MOM, but also this is based on proven experience. This isn't obviously the first time you've done it. I think it feels like you've taken a lot of what you've done in the past and then applied it to data transformation. So I really want to dig into those three steps: migrate, optimize, and modernize. Let's start with migrate. How is that the first step?
So before I get into, we call it MOM, by the way. MOM at USEReady is very popular. I'm sure moms are popular everywhere. So we actually started with migration, optimization, and modernization, not immediately. So we have about a decade of hands-on experience building USEReady and working with hundreds of different large enterprise clients. Prior to founding USEReady, I was with a very large investment bank in Manhattan. The term user ready for us in the name itself, right? The user ready. User stands for a citizen data scientist, person that's using data for making everyday decisions. I'll get to mom in 1 minute. And what we found out, and when we started working together with a lot of our clients, is that every chief data officer out there, when they start their journey, have about a dozen different internal enterprise grade problem sets, right? Whether it's community development, data literacy on an end user level, legacy technology, legacy BI infrastructure, legacy data platforms on prem, having to modernize it, having to retire those legacy, right? And while achieving all this, having to optimize their landscape with better cost optimization, governance, security, and a ton of our customers are what we call in the regulated industry, meaning they have government and regulations that are really controlling how they can operate, what they can sell, on and on, and the data sensitivity is really paramount. So we codified that journey for a chief data officer or chief analytic officer and said, you need mom. Everybody needs mom, but CDOs absolutely need it. That's where the migration, optimization, modernization team started for us. When we'll talk more about when you think about migration, we at UserReady think about from the user domain perspective to begin with, right? Users and the user domain is usually the sponsors of the programs and why we spend and invest. And the user domain is what is really common between us and Starburst as well, right? And when you think about user domain, for them, technology debt is a huge issue, right? And being able to be self-service oriented is a big deal. And they are the ones who are recipients of data democratization strategies, right? So for them, providing the tool sets, bringing them up to speed, cutting edge is really important. And the cost drain that happens with legacy technologies is humongous. So if you think about it, it's a kind of a BI consolidation play or data consolidation play, platform consolidation play. It starts with migration. That is where we begin with. We have,
That's the hardest part. I think
yeah, we have a lot of success stories around it. What kind of problems we deal with?
I think the challenges that I see every day, honestly, talking to different customers when they're thinking about migration. And to be fair, we've been migrating to the cloud now for what 2016, 2015 is what some of the early adopters started. So we've been doing this for a while, and maybe we're getting better at migrating with speed. It's still expensive. It's still disruptive for the business teams. And I think that the bigger challenge now is that at some point when we started this exercise 5 or 6 years ago, we had this end in mind. We'll migrate and then we'll stop. It feels now like it never stops. There's always something else to migrate. And if you've migrated at one place, now you're thinking about where to migrate it somewhere else. And so that data movement on the back end, I think, is a huge challenge for companies. And the headache is, do I need to keep moving? One of the theses that I read on your website about your approach talks about the ROI for migration, really stepping back and saying, hold on a second, you don't have to migrate everything, right? Being smarter about what you migrate, why you migrate, and where you migrate, and not being afraid to sometimes access, like we do at Starburst, we say access the data where it lives if you can. Can you talk a bit more about how you address that, the ROI, that approach?
Yes. So, in order to really, when you think about migrate, I have this analogy that if I uh, moved my house as many times as enterprises had to
Oh,
move data,
yeah.
probably my wife would not keep me around. Right? That's a reality. We have to stop this at some point at a place where it really doesn't make sense anymore to migrate. When we think about migration, honestly, it's not about lift and shift at all. We actually built a concept what we call migrator IQ. So without ROI of migration, the whole process is moot point actually. So for us, we built estimators, we built tool sets to first assess. We actually built a framework around it. We call it plan, validate, migrate, right? So where we want to validate what we are post migration and pre migration and establish an estimator or a calculator around, is this viable, is this sustainable, is this the right move. So we have used a lot of software to achieve that. um, One point I want to make on that in that space is also connected to data mesh. How we think about it before uh, data mesh became popular recently. What is the real difference here? Is that in Web 1.0 and 2.0, data was servicing the applications, whereas in the modern data stack, It's the application that is serving data.
Mhm.
In other words, automation has to drive these process, not really a manual lift and shift. That is where the first step of the ROI conversation begins. And usually, what we have seen is about 60 to 80% shrink of the legacy footprint post migration. That's the target we have.
Because you're rationalizing, because we're not moving one piece at a time. We're
Correct.
consolidating, we're replacing maybe kind of homegrown customized applications with SaaS platforms, or we're bringing things together. Yeah, fantastic. I love that. Because then that takes us to optimize, right? So we didn't do left and shift. We made the right decisions for how we migrate the data. Now we want to optimize access to that data. And when I think of optimization, I think about it in at least four levers, right? And so I'd love to test this with you to see if you agree with me, right? I think about certainly performance, right? Everybody says, okay, you optimize for performance, optimize for cost, right? There's a TCO involved with what you're building. Optimize for compliance, right? Am I moving it into the right place? Are there data sovereignty issues? Am I protecting the data? And then you optimize for user experience, making sure that what you've built, not only is it high performant, not only is it secure, not only is it ultimately effective, but that it's effective for that end user primarily. Are we aligned in the way? What would you add to that, or maybe do you have a different approach?
Absolutely. So once again, we have taken a framework centric approach on it. When you think about optimization, there are several dimensions, right? So once we shrink the footprint of the legacy,
Mhm.
and the ultimate idea is, can we be self-service oriented,
Yeah,
right? On the front line, on the user domain side, and on the data side, are we continuing to service the user domain in the way that is cost effective? We talk about data as a product quite a bit in the data mesh, right? If the cost to make that product is unsustainable,
yeah.
right, is so high that we can't even make any money off it, then why even have that product in the first place, right? In the typical technology product space, we call it, oh, we lack the product market fit. So optimization should establish that, whether it's for BI dashboard or any data product that we are putting out there, optimization is paramount. So we have again taken a framework and automation centric approach. So we have built tools um, as an extension to the previous concept. We actually call it OptimiQ. So we have built specific monitors, Snow IQ, Skill Belt. So a lot of these monitors are meant for monitoring and optimizing the footprint that you're serving the end user domain.
Wow, I love it. Uh, so let's give me a bigger concept. It's like a data product IQ concept, right? So we are
Correct.
creating intelligence around how the data product operates, what it costs, how it's used, who's using it, where it's being used, so to speak. So it's basically building intelligence around the data product itself. Is that
Yes,
right?
and what I'm hearing from the vertical market, right? One of these largest healthcare insurance providers recently went on all cloud, and they went to one of the popular cloud data, platforms. And it is nothing to do with the platform; it's about the users, right? So what happened is they had a huge sticker shock. They went from spending $5 million a year to $50 million a year, an odd 10 order of magnitude unexpected spend, no budgets
Wow.
considered at that point, and it was really making the CIO and CDO very uncomfortable that they got there. But the fact is, I think is also there's a cost to this experimentation, but also probably they discovered so many data products that don't make sense to keep. They probably will optimize from that standpoint onwards.
This brings me to another question. So I've seen it more and more in the last 6 months where companies they're excited by maybe the data mesh concept. They're afraid of the bigger transformation. I'm not ready for the organizational shift. I'm not ready for everything that's going to be required for me to change to fully build out that full data mesh model. So they'll start with data products, and they'll build, and they'll get, the idea is let's get really good at building data products within IT, start to kind of create best in class data products within IT, and then we can serve those up to our consumers. And I really like the idea. The challenge, and I've already seen a couple kind of get to this point, is if you're not careful about how you're building those data products, they become overwhelming, right? It becomes very difficult to manage, and they haven't thought about that IQ, right? So somebody would say, well, okay, Uday, so you've been doing this IQ monitoring for data products, so tell me how to build the perfect data product. Then we might say, well, hold on a second, there's no such thing as a perfect data product, right? It's look at what your user needs, look at how they're using data. And by the way, you might get something really good today, and if the market shifts, if their needs change, it's going to look different tomorrow. So I think there's a necessary element of agility when you think about data products. And then the second piece is you can't just build a data product without the processes and the framework to operate them effectively. They have to go in together. They have to be agile, and you have to have the process to manage that agility.
It's actually very true. We actually came to that inflection point once cloud became the operating system of the internet, right?
Yeah.
We got to a point where, okay, now that we have this platform, the fabric, if you will, on the internet, so let's start using that for various purposes. And data platform, it's became one of the first ones to go there, right? To be the platform of choice, cloud with backed by the cloud agility and the scale. However, when you think about post optimization or think the need for optimization is driven by the modernization, which is our third aspect of the MOM principle, where we call it modern IQ. Once again, on a very high level, 20,000 feet, there are two key transformation drivers. One is the core transformation, that is an enterprise core applications, core platforms, whether it's HR, finance, marketing, all the internal core applications to getting transformed, and the enterprise go-to-market transformation. Enterprise go-to-market I define as everything that an enterprise sells and interacts with their customers, the boundary of an enterprise. So that's where there are different kind of players. So rationalization comes from both perspective, core and go to market. And the modernization theme we carry is approaching that. Now, going back to the data products, you're saying now, how do you really optimize on the data products, number of data products? That's where the cultural aspect that you talked about or mentioned earlier comes into play. So I think data mesh needs to be very carefully stitched to the culture of an organization. Otherwise, it has a very high chance of failure because the decentralization without governance or a proper governance, in data mesh we call it federated governance, becomes a huge issue.
I want to jump more into modernize, but I have one final question on optimize. So you've got a couple different approaches to building a big data mesh. I like, and I think you do more what I've read, is kind of starting small, right? You're agile, right? We start with a small environment. I always tell the customers that I'm engaged with to pick a part of the business where a domain and data products are going to create immediate value. They're going to give you the momentum. They're going to give you the two-sided commitment, business commitment, IT commitment to kind of be successful. And then you have that kind of grow to be your showcase. And then others will start to see how that works, and people will get excited. And then they're going to be willing to make the commitments and make it successful. Okay. So that's us. There are other organizations that would say we're going big bang, right? We're going to drive a data mesh transformation program all at once. When you think about the MOM principles, do they apply for both, starting small or starting big? And what are you seeing the most?
So actually, data mesh starting big, I think, is a recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah.
That's without a doubt. So the way we apply MOM principle is actually to justify the transformations and how do you pay for it. So let's start with that. So MOMS as a principle for us starts from that perspective.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why we emphasize on migration is because you have locked in capital that you're committed to on these legacy platforms that you don't want to be on. So that is your first step to unlock that spend that is really not giving you any ROI, right? So migration leading into the optimization is keeping the optimization in mind. So going back to the data mesh principle. So once you start migration, that is the beginning of implementing And the four principles of data mesh come into play there, right? The data as a product, user domain, self-service, and federated governance. All the four steps have to go hand in hand as we start implementing the principles of migration, optimization, modernization.
Love it. Love it. And fully aligned on the start small approach. So now we get into the final M of mom, the modernize. And you touched on it a little bit a second ago. I saw on your site, and I like the quote, and I hope I get it right. It was bringing BI to AI. And I think later on in the text, we talked about how it's, we talk about, I talk about enabling the users. Data mesh is about empowerment. It's about enablement. And we talk about data literacy programs to train users how to use data products, how to be good data stewards, maybe even how to build their own data products. Something that we haven't talked about enough is where AI comes in, right? Well, hold on a second. Now is what is AI's role in that modernization approach, or and how is AI going to impact BI? I know that's just one of the areas you focus on, but I really caught on to it on your site. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So a lot of times, I think what we are concerned about usually is when a customer or a prospect asks us to build something for the technology's sake. We always hesitate at that point only because imagine if you're selling just data pipeline
Mm-hmm.
without any regards whatsoever to the end user's outcome,
Mm-hmm.
then you are a plumber, right? So we are trying to figure out what are we trying to become when we grow up. In that sense, for user ready, everything comes down to that user domain, first of all, right? So when you look at AI, what does AI do is really eliminates every aspect of the business where humans can make mistakes. Actually, AI protects us from making data mistakes, let's put it that way. In an ideal world, there should be no data cleansing required if only machines handle data. It's actually people who dirty the data more than machines many times, right? So AI helps you take away that people quotient in a practical way that people provide input or lend the collective intelligence, but the processes are governed and run by machines that are obviously much more efficient in any day of the week.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I when I think about AI, let me test some things because you're much more knowledgeable in this than I am. When I think about AI and data products, so I've had other conversations with other kind of data mesh experts out there about their, and I think it's vision more than reality today. So vision would be amazing to create an AI engine that is automatically building your data products. Okay, it sounds like a data fabric a little bit, but applying AI to the development of data products is fantastic. If somehow we could find a way to make that more of a commodity, make that more available. The second idea then is, and I think this is more practical. We're doing this today. The second piece is then using data products to feed an AI engine. I've seen that, right? Data products feeding AI. That you're seeing a lot. But using AI to build data products, I haven't seen too much yet. I think I hear people talking about it. Is that something your customers have asked about, or is that a vision you think is in the near term?
So what? So yes, in the early stages, right? So when you think about AI building a data product, so the way to think about is who is the end user for that particular
Yeah.
AI in itself is not building anything, but AI is an support mechanism or enabler, right, to the entire process in every step of the way. We can actually think about when user domain is well defined, well, data is operated as a product, meaning any data supplier and data consumer, they are in sync. In my early days of career, while I was at a bank, I used to realize afterwards that a lot of times the struggle we had was because that alignment was missed, where data suppliers or data providers were not being the custodians or owning that domain. Hence, the downstream, the data consumers had to take data from 20 different sources and stitch them together.
Yeah.
When you think about technologies coming up, I think we are actually rationalizing that in a good way, in a big way. I think once we reach that optimized model where data providers are completely trustworthy and supplying data reliably, then AI can play a much bigger role in data product validation, in enabling rollout of data product. In fact, quite a bit of automation is there. So I am careful to not confuse automation and AI a little bit. So there are two different areas, but automation does have significant impact in how you roll out a data product through automated CI/CD, automated testing, automated cleansing. But they're all rule based, not necessarily, you know,
I
AI
think
based.
that second M is the most important M. When I first kind of started doing a little bit of research on MOM and mom, and migrate made sense, and I love the way we've talked about it. Optimize made sense. Okay, great. But I think I misunderstood the second M. I think when you talk about modernize, if I'm talking to somebody about, hey, we're going to migrate, we're going to optimize, we're going to modernize, I feel like the natural idea is like, oh yeah, but didn't I just do that? I just built a platform. I just moved my data. Isn't that modernized? And we're saying, no. All you've done is create the capability. You've
Correct.
migrated the right things to the right place. You've optimized how that data is being used. You've created an incredible capability, but all you have is Mo, right? You need mom.
Correct.
You need the last mom. And modernization with a user ready perspective is now let's make sure that the business teams are modernized in a way, people process in a way that they can actually start to take advantage of the M and the O, right? And I think that's the second M is the most important. I don't know if many companies are mature enough to start focusing on that second M, but it sounds like you certainly are working with some that are.
Totally. We actually um, have built tools, homegrown, wherever it's important and critical to as part of the modernization strategy. So just to give an example, we realized while when we started working in Tableau ecosystem that if you retired a Hyperion or a business objects or Cognos, whatever legacy you are trying to rationalize, post migration, you still need a capability to drive regulatory needs or fulfill regulatory needs. And we found out that there was no such capability around modern tool like Tableau to do that legacy kind of work.
Mhm.
So we built that tool because we felt it was our responsibility to make this happen. Otherwise, we are never really fully migrating. So when we think about modernize, we have also complemented the space with tool sets that is important. But most critical factor is the ROI, and are we able to transition to the new way of working, which is instead of data serving a process, right, or an application, now the application is serving the data, and that transition is somewhat sounds very technical. I think we can do a better job of explaining that in the cloud world. The reality is that transition is key to understand why modern data stack.
Love it.
So I think that's the foundation of data mesh in general. Once we recognize that, that brings us to that inflection point, why we need to, mesh the data, why we need to decentralize. Everything happens at that point that it's no longer the data is serving the application, it's the application serving the data, and data takes the driver's seat. Data drives the decisions. We actually started popularizing this term decision intelligence from our side because of that reason. We are like, that is what we call decision intelligence.
That's the goal. Decision
That's the goal.
intelligence. Love it. Well, we're out of time. Let me get a promise from you that we're gonna find a way to do something in India, either Goa or Kumta or somewhere. I've been saying this to all my Indian friends. We've got to find a way to get over there. I need to get
We are on. Yes,
I got to
we
get
love
some
to
Rogan
host you there.
Josh. It's been a while, and I need it. And so, thank you so much, Uday, for your time today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I want to offer something else. So before I leave the screen, I know that if you want, people are going to want to continue the conversation, whether they want to talk about where the BI and AI, or whether they want to talk a bit more about the entire mom process. You were going to be at Gartner in Orlando, March 20th through 22nd. And so hopefully we can get together. Hopefully we can see anyone in the audience that wants to come up and chat a bit more with us. But I'll offer something else. I think we're offering a free pass to Gartner. And so there should be a link for you to click on. Click on that link, register, and you might be the lucky winner of that free pass. I think it's pretty expensive to go to Gartner. It's valuable, but that's a pretty valuable free pass. So I hope you'll take us up on that link and register. Awesome. Thank you, Uday. What a show, right? What a fantastic way to kind of start the year by talking about transformation. Data mesh transformations, we all appreciate that they're difficult. You want to put the time into doing it right. And before you start to kind of think about maybe how you might do it, it's amazing to listen and learn from experts, from industry experienced professionals like Uday Hegde, like what USEReady is doing, just to get some ideas, right? I love that mom approach, right? Migrate with a focus on the ROI, optimize for performance and for cost and for compliance and for the user. And that last M, the modernize piece, I think is special, right? Thinking about now that you've created that modern data stack, it's about enabling, it's about driving that decision intelligence, right? Making sure that your business teams already are modernized to take advantage of those fantastic capabilities. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the show. I know I did. We'll look for you next time for episode 15.